So right off the bat, we have some breaking news here as it relates to Donald Trump's cabinet. Mike Walls, who was obviously involved in this Signalgate scandal that's consumed this White House, has been let go. Can I have your reaction to the fact that he has been let go here, and what you think about those who Donald Trump decided to keep, such as Pete Hegseth?
Well, I think it's about time that someone was held accountable for the lapses that have been occurring in the national security team of this administration. And so I think it's good news that he is leaving, but that's not where it should stop. Really, Secretary Hegseth needs to be held accountable as well for the fact that he has mishandled sensitive information. He has jeopardized our national security and put at risk the safety of our troops overseas. So it's really important that Secretary Hegseth continues to be a part of the conversation. He should resign or be removed from his position for the way that he has mishandled sensitive information and put, in a signal chat that's non-secure to not just a reporter, but to family members as well, very sensitive information about troop movements and attacks. And anyone who works in the national security space knows and understands how grave a lapse like that is. And so we need to see greater accountability here.
What do you think it says that these are people for whom carelessness or recklessness with national security information was their driving force over the last decade or so as it related to Hillary Clinton, who've now kind of gone mum, gone silent as it relates to all of these Trump administration officials who've been caught doing something objectively more dangerous, such as, you just mentioned that Pete Hegseth had family members who got insight into these war plans. He bypassed Pentagon security protocols to be able to put it on on his personal computer. And so what does it say that there's that dichotomy here between how they treat it when it's perceived wrongdoing by a Democrat, and yet when it's somebody in the Trump administration, it just comes and goes without a second thought?
Yeah. You shouldn't just be concerned about national security when your own party is part of the conversation, right? It should be about what's best for the United States of America, about making sure that our national secrets are kept that way, and that our national security team is able to maintain confidence on Capitol Hill. And right now, we're seeing no courage across the aisle from Republicans to ask tough questions, to provide the oversight that is necessary in a situation like this, and to make sure that we're able to move forward in a way where we have confidence in the people that are in charge of our Defense Department, of our national security community. And the fact is, we know from the very outset of this administration that we're not getting the best and the brightest. We're not getting the most qualified people who have the experience. And it is showing. That's why we see lapses like this, clear mistakes that no one else who has been around the national security community would be making in their position. And so I think it's really a time for accountability, but also for Congress to step up to the plate, to put everything on the table for the American people, and to make sure something like this won't happen again.
So you mentioned Congress stepping up to the plate. Obviously, Congress, at least the Republicans in the majority, have refused to do that as it relates to Donald Trump's handling of the economy. We just got our first quarter numbers, and it showed that the U.S. economy, distinct from every other industrialized country in the world, actually had an economic contraction. And so why do you presume it is that your Republican colleagues refuse to do anything to rein him in, even as he is voluntarily ushering the United States into a recession?
The lack of pushback from my colleagues across the aisle in Congress, the silence is really deafening because we're talking about economic malpractice that this administration is committing against the American people. They're creating chaos on purpose. They're imposing tariffs that we know are making things more expensive for working families and disrupting the way that our small businesses go about what they do. I see that on the ground in New Hampshire. And the fact that you don't see Republicans stepping up in a meaningful way at this moment is incredibly disappointing. And it does a disservice to our ability to make sure that we're moving forward in a way where we can put up some guardrails for this administration. The fact is, talk to leading economists, talk to local business owners, talk to hardworking families. They know that this economic chaos is not good for business. It's not good for our long-range economy. It's not good for our ability as Americans to continue to outcompete the rest of the world. And so we need sensible policy that's predictable. Government should be a stabilizing force. We're getting anything but right now. and with the lack of cooperation from Republicans to be able to address the concerns that we are all hearing from our districts, we're going to be hard pressed to make a difference against an administration that is not listening.
So I mentioned at the top that you're running for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire. This is obviously not some liberal bastion, right? This is one of those few states that actually does give Democrats some concern because it's often operates as something of a swing state. And so in terms of the conversations with folks that you've had, constituents that you've had inside of your state, what are people saying? And I'm especially curious about folks who you've spoken with that may have voted for Trump in the last election, given kind of these new economic developments that he came into office specifically promising to alleviate.
Yeah, remember the promises to end inflation on day one, to lower costs on day one. He talked about grocery prices. Now he can't even remember what the word grocery mean.
That's right.
But the fact is, our families know what it means, and they know that half of the produce that comes into this country is going to be hit with higher tariffs as a result of the steps that this administration is taking. So not only do they have a proactive agenda to lower costs. And there's no cooperation with Democrats on the issues that people care about, like housing, like childcare, like energy costs, to make things less expensive. Instead, they're pushing an agenda that's actually making things worse at a time where no one can afford it. And so, when you come from a state like New Hampshire, you understand that the solutions are found somewhere in the middle and that you need to figure out how you build a coalition to win elections. We've been able to do that in 4 battleground races for the House. I represent half of the state of New Hampshire. Democrats are in 3rd place in my district. So I win by reaching out to independents and a lot of Republican voters that want a government that they can believe in, that understands this is a time to defend personal freedoms, to support the ability of American democracy to translate the will of the people into results, and to fight to make an economy that is a level playing field where everyone has a fair shot and where families can get ahead and stay ahead. And so that's just all pretty basic. When you talk to people out there right now, they recognize that the administration is estranged from reality. They are not listening to the American people, and they are not delivering on the basic promises that they made in the last election. The fact is, the economy was the pivot point in the last election. I think we can all see that borne out in the data. You look at, though, some Democrats that were able to outpace the top of the ticket in battleground states from Michigan to Arizona to New Hampshire. We did that because we were proximate to the voters on their deep concerns around the economy and around a host of other issues. That's how we're going to win in 2026. It's by getting real on the issues that people live in their day-to-day lives, fighting to get things done and to solve problems, and to stand up to the extremism and the chaos that this administration is causing that's making things worse.
All of that, I think, is exactly correct. There also is the added problem that right now, I think even beyond just fixing a lot of the things that are obviously problems posed by how the Republicans are comporting themselves or refusing to comport themselves as it relates to Donald Trump, there is still the problem that Democrats themselves as their own entity are pretty unpopular. I think there's been polling that shows Democrats as a party, as a brand, polling around like 29% or 27%, depending on the poll that you look at. And so how are you thinking about that in terms of entering this new era where, with 2026 and beyond, where we have to fix a lot of not just exploit the weaknesses posed by this Republican Party and Trump's chaos, but also fix how people perceive Democrats. It's not good enough to just say we're better than a very bad, inept, incompetent, and dysfunctional Republican Party. We need to give people an affirmative reason to come out and vote. And so how are you thinking about that in terms of moving forward into this midterm cycle and beyond?
Well, I think that's critically important. And look, the Democrats were flat-footed at the beginning of this administration. And a lot of Democrats that I talk to, or Democratic-leaning independents in my state, they want to see more. They want to see action. They want to know that we're taking every step possible to provide a full accounting of what's going on in Washington and the damage that this administration is doing and the impact that that's going to have on people back home. So I think the party is in a better place in terms of responding and engaging on the issues that matter right now than they were at the beginning of the year. But there's more work to do. And I think with respect to where we need to go for the future, the Republicans are giving us a huge opening here. Trump won the last election based on voters' feelings about his position on the economy and the kind of leadership he would provide. And the fact that now he's underwater by 15 points, perhaps in some surveys on the economy, provides Democrats with a huge opening to rebuild the trust that we've lost with working people on day-to-day kitchen table concerns. And so it is not enough just to be against what's going on right now. We have to be able to present a positive agenda. It's about how we defend Medicaid and provide access for more people to get the health care that they need, how we protect Social Security from Republican attacks, but also work to shore it up for the future, how we address those kitchen table issues, the cost of housing and childcare and energy that's far too high for working families in my state. They need some relief, and we need constructive solutions that are going to be able to lower those prices over time. So those are the kinds of things that I want to really engage in our campaign. Yes, we need to stand up and have checks and balances in Washington, D.C. against an administration that is making things worse for working families and small businesses. But we also have to tell them where we're going to go for the future and give them an economic roadmap of how we're going to rebuild the middle class and make life better.
Do you think that we are seeing something of a 2010-esque Tea Party movement? We've seen Dick Durbin announce his retirement, Jerry Connolly stepping down from ranking member of the Oversight Committee. Some of the older members have announced their retirements, which is different from the past because, the age of the Democratic caucus has just kind of continued to get older and older as these folks have stayed. Do you feel like we're going to see something of a major generational shift as we head toward 2026?
Well, I remember when I first ran for the House, it was the 2018 midterm cycle, and it was after Trump was first elected.
Yeah.
And there was a deep concern across the country about how we would respond, how we would ensure that our democracy was alive and well and could work for people. And we saw a new generation of leaders step up, many from non-traditional backgrounds seeking public office. It was the most diverse class of new members of Congress that we had seen in our nation's history. And I think we're going to see a similar pattern play out in 2026. And that's going to be healthy for our democracy. It's an important opportunity to pass the torch to the next generation, to make sure that we're getting the kind of active leadership that we need on a variety of issues that deeply concern people, and that the Democratic Party is able to rebuild confidence with voters that we lost in the last election. So I think this election cycle is a huge opportunity to do that. There is a ton of energy out there. You feel it. I see it on the ground in New Hampshire, from town hall meetings to coffee shops. People want to be a part of something, and we have to give them an opportunity to be part of a constructive process that's about putting our country on the right path to the future, solving problems, getting things done, from reestablishing the right to choose in this country, to addressing economic concerns, making sure healthcare is a right and not a privilege in this nation, acting on climate change. There are a lot of big things we can do as a nation that are incredibly popular out there if we have the political will to do it. And I think that is linked up with the kind of new leaders that we need to see in the arena.
How can folks who are watching, listening, help your campaign?
Well, we hope people will go to chrispappas.org, check us out, and support our campaign any way that you can. We're one of 4 open seat races for the U.S. Senate this cycle, and this is a really pivotal state. It's hard to see how we take the majority back, unwind the damage the Supreme Court is doing, or get our country on the right path for the future without holding the Senate seat in New Hampshire. So we're going to leave no stone unturned. Appreciate any support people can give us.
Great. We'll put that link on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, and also in the post description, as well as the show notes if you're listening on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time, and best of luck in the campaign trail.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate it.